Cardinals take game one of this series. The 2-2. Got him! 12 strikeouts as Wainwright goes the distance. And an 8-0 final. Now the Cardinals turn to Jaime Garcia, fresh off his opening day assignment here at Busch Stadium. Can the Cardinals pick up a sweep? Jaime looking for win number 2. Couldn't draw it up any better. What a beautiful day for baseball on this Sunday afternoon. And the Cardinals looking for a sweep. Watch out, don't get run over as they take on the Milwaukee Brewers. My name is Dan McLaughlin. I get a chance to work with a pair of lefties today. One on his way from the pregame set. That's the Mad Hungarian Al Hrabosky. And that is Rick Horton. And Rick, it has been a lot of fun here at the ballpark. What a way to open up the home portion of the schedule.
A lot of meaningful moments. We celebrated Stan Musial. We had opening day, which is always great. And oh, by the way, the Cardinals have taken 4 out of 5 games against Central Division rivals. So big games. The Brewers are down right now, and the Cardinals are kicking them while they're down.
It is Jaime Garcia getting to start for St. Louis, looking for win number 2 of the young season. Jaime, electric on the home opener with 10 strikeouts. Will it carry over to today? We'll talk about number 54 when we come back on Fox Sports Midwest. Gloves, the hardware, gold and platinum glove. A live look down on the field for Yadier Molina. Rick, what about Jaime Garcia today?
Last time out, Jaime Garcia, 10 strikeouts against the Cincinnati Reds, but what a tough act to follow. Cardinal pitchers have thrown 3 straight shutouts, and we'll see if he can follow suit here this afternoon on a beautiful day for baseball at Busch.
Well, the Brewers have just 2 wins total this season. One of those from Marco Estrada. He's the starter this afternoon for Milwaukee. Busch and picking up their replica gold and platinum glove award for Yadier Molina, presented by Rawlings. When you think about Molina, the numbers don't lie. 42 career pickoffs. That leads all catchers since 2004. But it's caught stealing and plays like this that really stand out. Since 2005, he has caught 174 base stealers at 45%. I hope we appreciate it. We are watching greatness at its best behind the plate in Yadier Molina. He's in the lineup yet again today. He's also durable. Cards, Brewers, a look at the homestand next. for a sweep against Milwaukee. It's been a great homestand. Let's take a look back at some of the top moments from this past week. Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Budweiser, the official beer of Major League Baseball. Great times are waiting. Grab some buds. See your Mid-America Chevy dealer or log on to stlchevy.com. Dobbs Tire and Auto Centers, #1 for quality tires and expert auto service. Save big money at Menards on all your home improvement needs. And by Steak and Shake. Steak and Shake, just no equal. A 3-man booth today. Load up on that mustard and ketchup. Get your hot dogs, peanuts, Cracker Jack. Here at the old ballpark as the Cardinals take on Milwaukee. The Mad Hungarian, Al Raboski, Rick Horton, Dan McLaughlin with you. Aoki, Segura, and Braun here in the first, followed by Weeks, Lucroy, Maldonado, Gomez, Betancourt, and then Marco Estrada. That's the lineup for Milwaukee. Defensively, the Cardinals brought to you by Dobbs, Holiday, Jay, and Craig in the outfield. Carpenter the start at third. Cosma back in there after the off day yesterday. Descalso shifting over to second. Matt Adams, what a start to his season. He's at first. 6 for 8. Pair of home runs, 7 RBIs. And the man of the hour. Why many of these fans are here today, Yadier Molina is behind the plate, and Alex Jaime on the mound this afternoon.
Well, Jaime's 1-0. He should be 2-0. Opening day, the bullpen blew that for him here at home. He owns April. He's 8-2 with an ERA of 2.14 in the month of April, and he's 20-11 here at Busch Stadium. And also, he really does like to pitch against the Brewers. He has an ERA of 2 in 5 career starts.
Beautiful day. The 6 cut into the grass in shallow center, the arch as well. And we're glad that you're with us. A lot of choices to take a look at on this Sunday afternoon. The Blues right down the street against the Hawks, the Masters, and Cardinals baseball. So sit back and enjoy it, and we're glad that you're with us.
What a difference in weather from the first game of this series. It was very, very cold. It's just gorgeous out here today. I know the fans are going to enjoy Cardinal baseball, especially if they can continue to throw up zeros as they've done the last 3 ball games.
Adams has to get back to the bag. Descalso has it for the first out. That's how we start the game.
Good sign right there. A ground ball out. Economical with his pitching also.
What a fantastic play made by Descalso yesterday at shortstop.
Such a valuable guy to have on your team. He can play all the infield positions, and he's a guy that's always ready. And Mike Matheny has a team right now that he's going to have to mix and match because you want guys in the lineup. I know the Brewers are saying we'd take a couple up. We'd find some at-bats for him right now because our guys aren't hitting. A lot of guys are hurt. And this is, Al, not the Brewers club that we're going to see 3 months down the road.
Exactly. You have to take advantage at this opportunity with so many guys on the DL.
Gene Segura, speedster. He was picked up in the Zach Greinke deal from Anaheim. And there's Ron Renneke. Banged up club and trying to figure out any kind of combination to jumpstart his offense.
Last weekend he lost Ryan Braun to a neck ailment, and even though Braun has been playing this entire week, he's not right.
Here's the 0-2.
Braun actually hurt his neck swinging in batting practice. Felt like really a sharp pain in his neck, and he again is playing, but his swing's off, his balance is off, and there'll be a time this year where he's a guy you're not going to want to pitch to, but right now he's not their most dangerous player.
Here's a 1-2 pitch. And if he was right, you wonder about the protection around him, and is he going to see much to hit from here on out? Floats in for a ball, and the count runs full. Segura, by the way, has been dealing with a thigh contusion. They thought he was going to miss some time, also a right ankle sprain, but we've seen him in this series. He can flat out move.
See if Jaime can't make a pitch here. He's probably walked too many.
And he walks him, lost him, and a 1-out walk to Gene Segura. And it brings in Braun. Toyota keys to the game here in the first inning, and Rick, it's a look at what Jaime's been able to do April and here at Busch Stadium.
And these are the numbers that Al was talking about. As good as he's been in April, he's been just as good at home, and you can add that he's pitched well against the Brewers along to that, but these are just phenomenal numbers. So you combine the kind of at home in April, kind of the best scenario for Jaime Garcia, and that's where we find ourselves.
That was Jaime's 8th walk in 12 2/3 innings.
Jaime works from the third base side of the rubber, and we've seen that Braun trying to get to the outside portion of the plate, and he can drive it with power all fields, but that particular spot, Cardinals have been pounding him there on the outside portion and have had great success in that regard. Sun is shining brightly, 76 degrees game time temperature as they play straight away and deep for Ryan Braun. Ground ball left side, and Kozma hits the lead man. That's a heck of a play by Pete Kozma.
You really have to kind of sense and know where your second base bag is. Watch him just blindly contort his body so he can get it over there, and then the second baseman, Descalzo, will act like a first baseman, and he'll just kind of stretch out there, try to help out.
That replay brought to you by Plaza Tire Service.
To get the lead man, that was quite the accomplishment. Probably the only play he had.
Certainly a loss for the Cardinals when Rafael Furcal got hurt in spring training, but there are those that said that Pete Kozma played so well in spring training he might have been the shortstop anyway, and he really has improved his defensive game to go along with the offense, and I would say he has firmly established himself as a major league infielder.
He's shown himself to be more than adequate at the plate, and obviously defensively he has been very good. 0-1 pitch to Weeks is a fly ball slicing down the right field line, and that is foul and out of play. By the way, Jaime Garcia is the Cardinals' all-time ERA leader at this stadium. This will be his 41st start at Busch Stadium 3. Over 264 innings and the all-time leader in ERA.
Here's something that does not come up in the Gold Glove conversation, but this is a catcher at the right time making a comment to a pitcher who may have gotten away with a pitch. Yachty knows it, Ricky Weeks knows it, and the catcher behind the plate that we know and love wants to make sure that Jaime Garcia knows it. So it's just a nice little polite reminder, Al, that you better be careful with that pitch selection.
And Ricky Weeks really struggling in his own rights. You're ahead 0-2. There'd be no way that you give him a pitch that he can drive.
A .227 hitter against Garcia in his career. To check on the runner, Ryan Braun at first.
Might flare one, he might quail one, just getting a piece of something, but a pitch down the middle that he can drive shouldn't happen.
Outfield is deep straight away for Ricky Weeks, who has very good power. Garcia was the first man out of the chute as far as this starting rotation is concerned here at home to put it all together. He had the 10 strikeouts, the home opener, the disappointing loss, but Rick, this pitching staff has been sensational.
String of good games, a lot of strikeouts. The ratio to walk to strikeouts as a whole has been good. Not very many hits, especially early in the game.
1-2, jammed him. Slowly hit. Kozma charges and makes the play over to Adams. Good start for Jaime Garcia. Milwaukee strands a runner. Cardinals coming up, home half of the first. Also, timely hitting. When you think about this homestand, Jay, Carpenter, Holiday today. That's in the first inning. Then Craig, Molina, Adams, Kozma, Descalzo, and Jaime Garcia. Defensively, it's brought to you by Dobbs. Braun Gomez, Aoki in the outfield. Gomez only 5 errors in 128 games a season ago, and he can fly. Betancourt, Segura on the left side, Weeks and Maldonado on the right side. Jonathan Lucroy is behind the plate. And Marco Estrada is on the mound.
Marco Estrada has been a kind of a journeyman pitcher. He goes back and forth from the starting rotation to the bullpen. His best pitch is his changeup. Fastball about 90 miles an hour. It maxes out. He's not a guy that strikes out a ton of guys, but he also throws strikes, not very many walks. So he's curveball, changeup, fastball, but look for the changeup to be his out pitch.
You saw him taking some warm-up tosses from the stretch. He was talking with general manager Kevin Towers of Arizona, and he says every year he brings an old scout to spring training. He said, I want you to come in here, you know, I don't want any written reports or anything. Just tell me what you see. And the point he was bringing up is one of the scouts says, you know, how many of your pitchers have trouble in the first inning? He said, well, several of them. He goes, do they ever practice how much do they throw from a stretch in the bullpen? And he even recommended, you know, even when you come out here during the game, to throw a couple pitches from the stretch just to get reacquainted with that delivery.
Pulled the string, and Jay way out in front, 75 miles an hour with that changeup. And a strikeout to start the ball game for Estrada.
Changeups can be very deceptive. You're swinging at the arm speed, and the arm goes through quickly, but because of the grip, the velocity is taken off, and there's John Jay on his front foot way out front of that changeup from Estrada, and we're going to see more of those.
And very good location with it also.
Hitless in this series is Matt Carpenter. Now, very interesting point you bring up, and I wonder, I'll pose the question to both of you because you both did starting and relieving. Primarily, though, I think we could say relievers. How much did you do that, though, as a starter when you're warming up in the bullpen? Let's just say, not even going out to have your warm-up tosses for a particular inning in which you're working from the stretch.
Well, I'll jump on that first, Dan, because as a starter, I knew that I was the kind of guy that gave up a lot of hits and walks, so I better work it from the stretch because I knew I'd be doing it. So I'd get plenty of practice. And honestly, you think about throughout the course of a game, there's a lot of base runners, and you're going to be throwing a high percentage of your pitches out of the stretch. And so it makes sense. So, yes, even as a starter, I would have 2 or 3 of the warm-up tosses out of the stretch. It was kind of just a natural course of events.
Three and one. How about for you, Al?
Well, in the minor leagues when I started, I really don't remember. That was too far. Killed too many brain cells from then. But as a reliever, you'll see a lot of guys that will only throw from the stretch for relievers because that's when they come in.
3-1 pitch is skied into shallow left center field. Segura battling the sun, and where is Ryan Braun? And where's Gomez? Tough catch for Segura, and this has been a Milwaukee team decimated by injuries and also guys that have left. And this time last year, Gallardo, Greinke, very good at the top of the rotation. Wolf, Markham, Narveson, well, completely different looking rotation now.
And Estrada was really their 6th starter a year ago. When anybody was injured, we'd see him. Narveson actually got hurt again this offseason, and former Cardinal minor league pitcher, left-hander, is also out again due to injury, and so they've been snake bit.
Yeah, Markham is now with the Mets. Narveson on the disabled list with a finger injury. Greinke, we all know about him. He's got the broken collarbone. Where is Randy Wolf? Is he still pitching?
And your personal favorite, T. Plush, is now
Japan,
making people angry overseas in Japan.
Ravon Hernandez is unsigned. Cameron Lowe is with the Mariners. Markham with the Mets. Mike McClendon with the Rockies. Manny Parr with the Reds. Francisco Rodriguez unsigned. Jose Veras with the Astros. Ishikawa with the Orioles.
And there it is, a 2-out walk, the first base runner for St. Louis. Walk to Matt Holliday. We're at Busch Stadium in St. Louis. Milwaukee and St. Louis. Cardinals looking for a sweep. Dan, Al, Rick, Jim. Throwing Pat. He'll be on the post game. Glad you're with us here on Fox Sports Midwest. Just a beautiful day here in the Gateway City. Two outs, and here is Alan Craig. By the way, Chris Duncan will be a part of the post game, and Dunk is feeling a little bit better, so good to have him back, and his insights. Really puts a lot of work into it. Does a great job on the air.
Good to see him before the game today, and he's looking forward to being with Pat on the post game, and he does an outstanding job of breaking this game down. He really, of course, has the pedigree, doesn't he?
Slicing foul and out of play.
And Jim Edmonds had a scheduled vacation trip, so he'll be back sometime during the, I believe, on the road trip. Still, you just barely see the right fielder playing so close to the line, right field line, with a right-hand power hitter up. It was odd yesterday to see Alan Craig with an 0 for 11.
Big gap in right center. 1 ball, 1 strike on Alan Craig. Popped up. Can he get there? Sliding attempt by Lucroy. You applaud the effort. Comes up just a bit short, and Craig has a life.
It's a big gap in right center defensively against Alan Craig as we take one more look at the attempt by Lucroy. Good effort. Slides over that batting circle there in front of the Brewers dugout, but anybody that's watched Alan Craig play over the last couple of years knows how he hits the ball in that right center field.
Exactly.
And it's okay maybe if the right fielder's playing him to hit it the other way, but you'd think Gomez would be shifting along with him in center.
Totally agree.
On 1 and 2, Craig drives it into right.
Perfect placement.
And just like we said, boy, they had him positioned perfectly. How about that?
How did they know that?
Cue. What are we paying you guys? What's the deal? What's going on here? accommodations, especially for the kids. One great price. It's the Six Flags double play combo. For just $55, you'll get a ticket to a game and a one-day pass to Six Flags. Double play combo right now at Cardinals.com/Six Flags. All signs indicate that the Padres' Carlos Quentin will drop an appeal today before the Dodgers series Monday. Those two teams, you have to figure, that will go back and forth. Bad blood after the brawl with Greinke breaking his collarbone. That'll go back and forth all season, you would expect.
Yeah, 9 out of 10 or maybe more brawls end up with just kind of stories and nothing kind of big to talk about. But that one, very, very tough on the Dodgers.
Lucroy, a base hit into center, and it brings in Martin Maldonado. The first base hit for either side.
Set up away, and it's down and away, but got a good swing on it. You know, I go back to the comment that I heard Dave Duncan say on the radio, and said with today's baseball, if you're an integral part of the team, and you should never go out and charge them out because automatic suspension.
The heat of battle, though, you wonder how many guys are thinking, I can't go out there and do this because of an automatic suspension. And I agree with you, Al. It sounds great, but as you well know, both you guys, you get into the heat of the game, and sometimes you're not thinking. Or if you are, you're maybe not thinking properly.
There's a very competitive heat of the game factor it's hard for us to maybe translate as you watch Major League Baseball on television. You're not hearing some of the things that are being said from the dugout. In fact, there's a lot less chirping that goes on maybe than 20, 30 years ago. But these guys have such a calm demeanor because that's how you play baseball. You have to play under control. But I can promise you there's a lot of competitive juices going on with the manager, the coaches, and each player on this field right now. And you just may not notice it because they move around so smoothly and in such a relaxed fashion. I can guarantee you Mike Matheny's not relaxed right now. He may look that way.
No, I agree. But I also agree that at this level, you really do have to channel those emotions and play under control.
1 ball and 1 strike. Martin Maldonado. Pops it up, and Yachty gives it a look, and it's out of play. Maldonado was robbed a couple of times at the plate yesterday. Think about the defense of Descalso that, for all intent and purposes, I think probably saves Wainwright as far as going the entire game to allow him to get the shutout. He was terrific. He's yet to walk a man, by the way, this season. Then also John Jay with his catch in left center field. One-two pitch. Tapped foul.
What would you say is a good strikeout to walk ratio?
2 to 1.
2 to 1 used to be, and now
3 to 1.
It
It'd be better.
Well, Adam Wainwright's leading the league 24 to 1, 24 to nothing.
Carpenter is near the line, just a couple of steps off that third base line. Outfield is straight away. We've had a lot of folks, we were talking about it the other night and again today, asking us on Twitter about, do you think that Major League Baseball should look at the suspension for Quentin differently because a player was hurt in Greinke? I mean, here's a huge signing, big name, lots of money, and he gets 8 games. Is that justified, thinking that Greinke could miss, who knows, 2 to 3 months? I think it's an interesting point.
It's a great question to ask. I think you always have the danger of that being manipulated some by the team on the other side that all of a sudden wants to, I don't want to say fake an injury, but you know, there's been gamesmanship that's gone on before in this game. So anytime you have a rule, you have to think about the ramifications of it.
And in my mind, Greinke's reaction to a guy charging him is what broke his collarbone. I've never seen a guy go down and do what he did I've seen him try and tackle the guy or do this or do that, but he kind of went into a blocking mode and paid the price for it.
3-2 on Maldonado. See if they want to start the runner. That's Lucroy. Not very good speed at first, but maybe try to get something going as they've been shut out.
We've been watching Matheny give signs to Yadier Molina, and for some folks that may not know, he's not really calling pitches there, but he's trying to control the running game, and he's either asking Molina to have Garcia step off, throw over, or deliver the pitch to the plate, or pitch out. That's the options.
3-2, not running, and called third strike. First strikeout for Garcia this afternoon. He's having words with the home plate umpire, but this is awfully close to be taking with 2 strikes.
And that's where Jaime wants to live, right down there on the bottom of the strike zone. He was fooled. He was looking off speed and got the fastball. Jaime did strike out 10 in his start on opening day here on Monday.
Carlos Gomez, slow start for him at 162. Carpenter is in. Over at third is Adams is holding at first. And Rick, you bring up a point that I know a lot of fans do question. Do the Cardinals, and you see it right now, he's giving signs to Molina. Does Matheny or Derek Lilliquist, does he ever call pitches? And the answer is no, absolutely not. And Mike was asked about that in spring training. And he said, look, if you get to this level and you're a professional catcher in the big leagues and you can't call a game, you probably shouldn't be here anyway.
And they're going to know more than somebody on the bench is going to know by a hitter's reaction, etc. So what Mike's doing is he called the pickoff attempt 2 pitches ago for Garcia. He may call step off or deliver home.
Line drive and a base hit out to left. Lucroy stops at second base. 2 on for Betancourt, the 8th place hitter for Milwaukee.
Mike Matheny is kind of called out a lot of high school and college coaches for calling every pitch. That ball's a little bit up, and see it's an off-speed pitch. Leave it up there. In some ways, I thought they were paying way too much attention to the base runner, Lucroy, at first. Mike thinks that's part of the normal maturing of a catcher. A young catcher is to be able to call a game.
1 out, runners at first and second, and we've seen a lot of pitches up early on from Jaime Garcia. Matheny won 4 Gold Gloves. Yadi has won 5 straight and 2 Platinum Gloves.
Nice changeup from Garcia. We've seen a good changeup from Marco Estrada already. Again, you sell it with your arm action. You have to. You can't let up. You can't telegraph it. You can't slow down your delivery. You have to let the grip take the speed off, and that had Betancourt on his front foot.
1-1 pitch. Cardinals starting staff with the strikeout earlier this inning. Now a National League best 68 Ks with at least 1 strikeout in 15 of the last 17 innings.
It's like his cutter is what he's having trouble with. Can't get it down, can't get it to really have much depth to it. It's like it's just sliding at the same angle, same spot.
A 3-1 pitch. As you mentioned earlier, Mr. Matt Hungarian, when Garcia is down in the zone, more times than not, and that's a statement for most pitchers, but more times than not, he is going to win. You talk about 4-seamers and 2-seamers and where you want to live in the zone, but for Jaime, when he's down in the zone, he is dominating.
It just seems when he keeps the ball down, he just has unbelievable movement.
A 3-2 pitch. Got him. Held on to by Yachty.
Change up there, but you don't want to make a living. And Molina's going out and talking to him about get the ball down.
Plaza Tire Service replay. Second strikeout of the game. Second in the inning. By the way, yesterday at AAA, Michael Wacha, his first win. And this morning, they placed Eduardo Sanchez on the DL, so hopefully that's nothing serious. Unfortunately, that's kind of been his story the last couple of years. He can't stay healthy, and he did have a pretty good spring.
You saw that apparently they've changed the signs with a catcher running at second base.
The pitcher up. This is Estrada. Is a base hit, 2 RBIs this season.
Garcia working on 34 straight scoreless innings for Cardinal pitching in this homestand.
It's a friendly rivalry where the starters all get together now and, all right, I did my job. You got to go out there and throw a shutout to keep this string intact.
2-0.
He doesn't look as confident, comfortable as we've seen him in his first 2 starts.
The 2-0 pitch. And he goes to 3-0 on Estrada. And as you guys know well, sometimes it's the first 2 or 3 innings. You fight through whatever the issue is for Garcia, then you settle in.
The issue always is, to a degree, getting the right release point on all your pitches, whether it's your curveball, changeup, or sinker. And right now he's struggling either releasing the ball too soon or too late, trying to get that right feel, and you just hope it's not too late by the time you get that feel.
Adam Wainwright along with Shane Robinson looking on in the Cardinals dugout. That's strike 2. Waino, by the way, the first Cardinals starting pitcher with a complete game shutout, which he struck out at least 1 batter in every inning. Bob Gibson, the last to do it, 1970. That's how good Waino was yesterday. Here's a 3-2 pitch. Runners go with the pitch. It's a base hit. No, it's going to be caught by Matt Adams. Molina, Matt Adams, Cosma coming up. Garcia out of the jam. With Stop Out Bully, leading national anti-bullying organization for kids and teens in the U.S. Learn how you can help. Please visit stopoutbullying.org. Forms of digital abuse and racism, hatred. So great charity to be aligned with this baseball season. Tomorrow, by the way, Jackie Robinson Day throughout Major League Baseball. I'm looking forward to seeing the movie that's out.
Me too. It's on my plan for the week.
And I want to tell you that in the elementary school programs, I've incorporated a section in those programs on anti-bullying. It's really become a big problem, and it all stems. My part of the anti-bullying story from a letter we got from one of our viewers from Oklahoma, and the tragedy of his son that was being bullied and got to be such a degree he ended his life, took his life. And so in the Cardinal Elementary School program, when I do it, there's the anti-drug, but there's a big part on anti-bullying.
And that's been a great program that Joe Cunningham been associated with for so many years.
Molina with a high fly ball that'll stay in the ballpark in right field. Aoki is there. When did Joe start that? That's been decades, hasn't it?
Yes. Yeah, Joe Cunningham, who was my first minor league manager, started the elementary school program, and he actually was trying to, create a new group of Cardinal fans, right down to the elementary school. And he used to run with an old FBI supervisor here in St. Louis. And he put in Schultz put in, said, you got to put a drug message in there. He says, well, I'm talking to elementary school. He goes, that's where we need to start.
Shift is on here for Matt Adams. Small sample size when you think about the video to go back and look and watch Matt Adams. And Matt was telling me in spring training, really focused on taking the ball up the middle and driving it opposite way as well. And he has done that a number of times already this season. He's also knocked a couple over the wall too.
Yeah, small sample size, but think of the number of scouts that every organization has that has watched him play at every level in the minor leagues. And there's information there that may not be in national reports that we can see, but some scout knows Matt Adams, trust me. So when they have conversations about how to play guys defensively, they'll make those points.
A 3-1 pitch to Adams.
Used to love those meetings, Dan and Al and I go back to the days where they would have charts actually drawn on with colored pens and colored pencils of who hit the ball which way, and now it's of course digital and much easier to follow, but those meetings really still the same. Who's gonna pull, who's gonna hit the ball in the gap.
Beats the shift with a base hit into right field.
Right where the second baseman would have been.
First Cardinal hit of the afternoon off the bat of Adams.
How about 10 for 15 for Matt Adams now? Look at there. Now they've got 3 over there, and he hits it right where the second baseman would be in a normal alignment.
As much as we look at numbers in baseball, teams would not be doing it, Cardinals included, unless the numbers bear out that it pays off more times than not. However, when it doesn't work, it drives you crazy. Here's Pete Kozma.
And the guy who has to make sure it doesn't drive him too crazy is the guy on the mound who thinks he just got a ground ball. Because they all have that certain feel from the mound. You can tell whether it's going to go to an infielder or not. And when you're surprised at the result, you have to mentally be able to get over that.
Shade Kozma a bit to right center. Odd way for Estrada to come set. 0-1 pitch. Make it 0-2. By the way, Randy Wolf, we were wondering about Randy. Tommy John surgery. He'll miss the entire season. So obviously no one signed him. He's a free agent.
Surprised K-Rod was not signed.
Yes.
1 ball and 2 strikes. Estrada coming into the season 231 strikeouts in 231 innings. Over the last 2 seasons, only 58 walks. Only Brewers pitcher that had been better in those categories during that time frame, Zach Greinke, now with the Dodgers. Cosma doesn't like the call. It's a strikeout. And the second of the afternoon for Marco Estrada.
Fastball grip. Throws a lot of change-ups. And likes to throw his fastball up in the zone, too. Maybe caught Cosma by surprise by throwing that pitch down and away. And may have caught the corner, maybe not. Too close to take.
Tough homestand for Descalso, 1 for 12. And today is his 8th start at second base. And with Freese healthy, you wonder how Mike will try to play that. And also the different looks that he'll have throughout the season with his lineup. Whether it's Carpenter, Descalso, Freese. In this case, Beltran sits. There's that changeup out in front, 0-2.
Brewers with a shift on Descalso as well, and the third baseman Betancourt way off the line, basically giving him a bunt single if he wants it. And now with 2 strikes he won't do it, but he was just as far back, Al, on the 0-1 count. I wonder if Descalso may be tempted to try to drop one down before it's over.
And he waves at it, strikes out. So Estrada has struck out 3, 2 in this inning. Adams stranded after his base hit over at first. No score after 2 innings of play. Cardinals baseball on Fox Sports Midwest is brought to you by Schnucks, your neighborhood hometown grocer, and by Steel, available exclusively at a servicing Steel dealer near you. Visit steeldealers.com. The brats on the grill just outside the ballpark. Nice looking hat. And there's no score as we go to the top of the 3rd. Apparently he picked that up from our very own Tim Garcia. Very nice of Tim to loan him that lid. Aoki, Segura, and Braun for Milwaukee. Milwaukee is stranded 3 in this game as Garcia starts the 3rd out with a strike.
Not this time right now. He might get himself back into a groove.
How about the Braves? They're up 7-0 against Gio Gonzalez and the Nationals. Could be on their way to 9 straight wins. And Justin Upton, another home run, his 7th already.
Kimbrough with 6 saves already. Their starting pitching's been good.
Love their outfield.
And they beat Strasburg, and they're trying to beat Gonzalez back to back.
A 2-1 pitch. 2-2. Cardinals pitchers, their scoreless streak at 34 innings. Ooh, he just missed.
Aoki is 4 for 9 off of Garcia.
First time up, he grounded out. Call third strike. Number 3 today for Jaime Garcia.
Aoki wants to argue, but still learning English. Not sure he knows how to yet. But he does not like this call, and I can see why. Just off the outside corner. They say he has a couple of phrases in English that he's learned, and
can you repeat them on television?
No, I'm sure it's all baseball related, but they do have an interpreter.
Yeah, like I said, can you repeat them on television?
I'd rather not.
Hey, go ahead, Rick. Just try it.
Yeah.
It's been fun working with Rick Horton. Here's Gene Segura. Walked his first plate appearance. Garcia has walked 1. Line drive and over Adams and into right field. MLB.TV celebrating 11 years. Join the millions of fans and subscribe right now. MLB.TV, baseball everywhere. Cardinals.com, you can find it there. MLB.TV. You got your big guy at the plate, but if you're Ron Renneke, Rick, do you want to start the runner here? You've got a threat that can steal in Segura. And I know Yadi's behind the plate, but you've got to get something going, anything offensively.
And sometimes that's a way to get somebody jump started. Just got to hit the ball on the ground, try to hit the ball the other way, maybe get the timing back a little bit. Mike Matheny very aware of that, calls the pickoff attempt at first base. The Brewers are 5 for 6 in stolen bases. The Cardinals have only attempted 1 stolen base so far in the early going.
Coming into play, the Brewers as a team only hitting .246. Just 5 home runs. Let's take it inside for ball 1.
You know, the funny part of that, Al, is you get a base runner on a team that's really struggling offensively, and you think steal to try to manufacture something, but you also think, hey, we finally got a base runner. I don't want to lose him. So it's kind of a tough place to be in.
Sure, and you know that Ron Renneke knows about Yadi Molina's ability to throw. If the pitcher just gives him a chance, they would steal it off the pitcher, not off of Yadi, but you got to vary those looks, do the different things. Would it drive you crazy that everything comes from the bench?
Yeah.
And you're, because it's a timing in hitting, and it's also in pitching.
Well, I had this discussion multiple times with Tony La Russa, and you mentioned, Dan, that maybe you said it, Al, that Mike Matheny's trying to get college coaches to allow catchers to call games. I'd like to see him allow pitchers to control the running game. You think that's part of pitching, is the feel of that.
Runner thought about starting, and tough play here. Over to first, Adams off the bag. So Segura began going towards second base, then hesitated. The chopper to Carpenter, commits the air, and 2 runners on.
Kind of an in-between hop for Carpenter, and he can't come up with it, and still has time to throw out Ryan Braun. Keeps the ball in a place where he can retrieve it, so it's still not a problem yet, but the errant throw is really what causes the error, and now Garcia is going to have to do some pitching.
A replay brought to you by Hyundai. Ricky Weeks grounded out to short first time up. Runners at first and second. One out. Ground ball left side. Carpenter to second. Out there. On to first. Double play. Gets the ground ball. Gets the double play. And keeps the Brewers off the board.
At their official Bud Light draft party at Dave & Buster's on Thursday, April 25th. You can hang with Rams players, cheerleaders, and Rampage as the Rams select their next generation of stars. For details on the free event, head to stlouisrams.com/draft day. No score, bottom of the third. The Cardinals pitching continues to dominate. 35 scoreless innings now for St. Louis. And it'll be Garcia, John Jay, and Matt Carpenter in the Cardinals' third.
Ground ball. The double play for Cardinals and Garcia. Gets out of the jam with Weeks up. And also Matt Carpenter off the hook, too. Saw that Adam Wainwright not only pitched so well yesterday, but how about what he did at the plate? 3 base hits, the RBIs.
Wonder if his hitting is going to come back to a higher level. There was a time where Adam Wainwright was used as a pinch hitter early in his career.
It's a good point. When you sit out as long as he did, not seeing major league pitching. Garcia will stare back to Estrada. One-two pitch. And Estrada, first time through this lineup, he strikes out 4. We're at Busch Stadium on a beautiful day for baseball. Yadier Molina, Rawlings, Gold Glove and Platinum Glove giveaway. Dan, Al, Rick, and Jim with you. Head to Pittsburgh. Starts a 3-city road trip tomorrow night. We'll have those broadcasts for you on Fox Sports Midwest. John Jay struck out first time up. It was that very good changeup that got him. And Jay is hitting .240 on the year. Pair of home runs. He's driven in 6. And Jay rips it into right. Aoki is there for out number 2. never seen Al get more excited throughout the telecast about the Twitter poll night in and night out. The Twitter poll brought to you by AT. Who is your all-time favorite Cardinals defensive player? Yachty, Ozzie, Edmonds, Flood.
It's a difficult question. A lot of Gold Gloves in that group of 4.
Different eras. Slicing, Braun on the move, and he won't get it. It's a fair ball, and it hops over the wall. A ground rule double for Matt Carpenter.
That broke a little 0-for-8 streak for Carpenter. Coming off the bat of the left-handed hitter, is just going to slice away and eventually bounced into the stands.
Cardinals have a runner in scoring position. They have stranded 2 on the day. In steps Holiday. Walked his first time up.
4-for-8 against Estrada. He's got a 6-game hitting streak.
Outfield is deep. They shade him just a bit to the right side. He may have gotten away with that pitch right there. I'm sure the eyes of Matt Holliday lit up when he saw that. Attempted foul.
He's such a good low ball hitter, and with Matt Holliday, he can also do damage if he's out front. And so with a guy throwing a changeup, he's trying to get a guy out front, throwing a ball down in the zone. That doesn't mean you're going to get Matt Holliday out. He maintains his strength and power in his swing, even with a ball about shin high.
Strike 2. Estrada, you watch him come set, and from the stretch, kind of an odd way that he begins. Also very deliberate when he's working from the windup. Kind of dips down, comes set, and then the toe tap with the front foot. Long look. Carpenter at second, the 0-2.
I think you'd be careful with Holliday here. Holliday, Molina, and Descalso are the 3 Cardinals that hit Estrada well. All 3 of them batting over 500 in kind of a limited sample size, but Holliday 4-for-8.
And Alan Craig 0-for-4.
Holliday, base hit in the left. And the Cardinals go on top. The ground rule double by Carpenter. And Holliday brings him in on a 1-2 single to left. Birds on top here in game number 3.
9th RBI for Holliday. That's tops in the ball club. Broke the tie between Holliday and Beltran. That ball just diving on there. He hit this ball so hard.
Al, you talked about it yesterday as we get a look at the head-to-head matchup between these 2 teams here in St. Louis, and the Cardinals have dominated, but may surprise some folks that they actually measured the speed off the bat of various players in the league, and Holliday was above Pujols as far as how hard it comes off his bat. You get up close to Matt Holliday, then you understand why. He is in tremendous shape. One of the strongest players in the league. There's the changeup, it looked like 76 miles an hour.
Dan, there's a new statistic, really not that new, but it's called BABIP in baseball, and that is a reflection of the batting average of balls in play. And there are those that would say that that's an indication of players' luck, and I would say it's an indication of just how hard a guy hits the ball. And Holliday, with that high miles per hour coming off his bat, is going to find more holes than most will. And again, there's a lot of new statistics, and some are very, very helpful. That one, I think, is going to be maybe refined over time to mean something a little bit different than they thought it meant.
Saw the stopwatch from Mike Eldretti. He is the bench coach to Mike Matheny. And there's a base hit into center field. How about for you, Rick, the times to the plate as a pitcher? What did you want when you came set? You know, you're just over a second or so to the plate.
I never worried about that as a left-hander. Right-hander has to worry about it. There's pretty good bat speed from Alan Craig driving that ball from him.
That's what they're doing right now, trying to get times. Here's Chris Maloney, also the first base coach. He has a stopwatch, and they continue to see if Estrada, there's any kind of chink in the armor as far as what he does towards the plate and his time.
It's not only that, but it's also the time the catcher's release. And then you put those two together, and mathematically, can a guy outrun the ball? And in the case of the young season, and the Cardinals only trying one stolen base and being successful in that by Descalzo, we've faced some of the better pitching staffs and catchers at throwing.
Okay,
change up again.
So here's the problem with that. Yadier Molina steals as many bases as he did a year ago, and you can add up all the numbers you want from pitcher and catcher and Molina's time to second, and it doesn't add up to him stealing bases. It's all about the jump.
Sure.
If you get a good jump.
Well, we say you steal off the pitcher.
Exactly.
Pitcher and paying attention to you, pick your spots, you can be successful.
0-1 is hit out to deep left. Braun is on the move. He won't get it. To the wall it goes. 1 run is in. Here comes Craig. Relay to the plate is in time as they get him. A run does score as Molina makes it a 2-run St. Louis lead. Bang, bang play at the plate. The execution well done by Milwaukee. To the naked eye, though, it looked like he may have slid in safely. A better look here. Ooh, Milwaukee gets a break. Of the fourth, and I thought, guys, we saw a safe Alan Craig. What did you think? Not all at once.
Well, it's tough to see. It looks like the hand may get in there, but it's a bang bang play.
Better view here.
Sticks the leg out there to slow him down. That play, I thought he was safe. That from that look. Umpire right there in good position, and he's safe. Right called out.
Matt Holliday made the right call. He called him safe.
He sure did.
But we should again mention how good the relay was. Ryan Braun in a hurry getting that ball in left center field, and a strong throw from Segura.
Jonathan Lucroy leads it off here in the fourth inning. only appropriate that Yadier Molina would also add to his special day with a double and an RBI. Any of the fans here today here to celebrate the gold and platinum glove giveaway. Base hit by Lucroy. And speaking of Yadier Molina, let's welcome in Jim Hayes. Hello, Jim.
Hi, Dan. Mike Matheny was talking about Yadi's defense before the game. He says Yadi's greatness goes beyond the great throwing arm, blocking balls behind home plate, calling a great game, even preparation. He says Yadi's greatness comes from his involvement with his pitchers and his passion for his pitchers. He says Yadi learned a long time ago the #1 job of a catcher is to find a way to help his pitcher win. That means get to know the pitcher, know what works and when it works for him. And Mike Matheny says Yadi's done that better than anyone.
Jim, thanks. And Jim will be on the tail end of our road trip. Pat will be on the road with us. Jim will be hosting tomorrow night, as this is Martin Maldonado. So I'll ask both you guys. I'll start with you, Rick. What is it about Yadi that is not the obvious statement of his arm or getting the base stealers, the pickoffs, but what stands out for you?
I think he has baseball IQ and instinct. I think that comes a bit from it being in his family's kind of history and growing up. You know, his father helping him as a coach and his brothers. But I mean, his IQ, you don't really have to sit there and explain something to him. He's light years ahead of everybody else in terms of understanding what's going on in the field. And I think that translates into physical things later, because he's not really having to overthink. He just, again, has those instincts.
And he has such a quick release that he receives the ball, quick release, it's accurate.
1-1 pitch, ground ball. Carpenter, this time he makes the play. Out at second. Oh yeah, double play. That's the second double play started by Matt Carpenter. A similar ground ball that time to the one that he committed the error on last inning.
Thinking the same thing, the kind of the short hop, and you just have to commit to it and go for it. And here's the ground ball to the left side, that short hop, but he gets in front of it, makes the play, gets rid of it quickly. And a good turn by Descalzo.
Off the line. Last time he was really guarding the line. He was about where he ended up throwing. And also, you know, you saw that little sidestep where he get his body under control, so he right before he threw to second base.
Check swing, did not go. Carlos Gomez, 1 ball, 1 strike, and 2 outs and nobody on.
Carlos Gomez has always been a bit of an enigma to me. At times I watch him and I think, wow, this guy's a really, really good player. And there are times I look at him and I think he's not. Very streaky.
Grounder that's hit to short. Cosma charges, flips, and safe. And that's the one thing that you love about Gomez, the raw tools that he has. And one of those tools is his speed.
I was about to say that his speed is what at times you can separates him. Looks like a flashy player. He can run.
Wonder what kind of grip that Cosma got on that. He just kind of flipped it, getting it quickly out of the glove.
It's a good call, that's for sure. And I think he probably would have been better off setting and throwing the ball with a little bit more behind it. I know he was thinking speed of Gomez, and that's what it does to you.
Betancourt, a couple of hops to Cosma, flips to Descalso and Garcia, and the Cardinals strand another runner. Big old Matt Adams due up first when we come back. with 8 gallons or more now until June 30th, and receive up to 50% on a pair of tickets to a Cardinals home game. For more information, visit cardinals.com/Phillips66.
A speedy recovery to Olivia Salonik. Olivia's daughter works here at the front office with the Cardinals, and we want to wish her mom, Olivia, a speedy recovery.
Mike Russell from Luther North, longtime coach, teacher, is retiring after 41 years and have a great retirement. Big Cardinal fan and enjoying it here today. There's Matt Adams, beat the shift first time up. Outfield is straight away. Adams gives the Cardinals that threat of power off the bench. Pinch hit home run, much needed at that time of the game the other night. He chases that pitch 0-2. And the reality of it is, when Craig moves to the outfield or sits, you do have power off the bench. Potentially you could have a Holiday, a Beltran like today, or an Allen Craig or Adams.
Cardinals were hoping for that same threat from Ty Wigginton. He could provide a threat like that from the right side.
2-2.
And you'd say at this point a strong point for the Cardinals is their bench, or is their depth, I would say. Shane Robinson, the best Cardinal hitter in spring training, is having a hard time getting at bats. He'll spell John Jay in center from time to time, and he can play both corner outfield positions. And not the pop guy you're talking about, Dan, but Shane, I think, is really coming into his own as a hitter.
Remember that Shane Robinson at one point, I think we forget this, was dropped off the 40-man roster and worked hard to get back here as Adams hits it out of play. He had those devastating injuries. The one was the collision with Brown, the shattered jaw, and he was left to wonder about his major league career, so give him a lot of credit. A 2-2 pitch again. Good at bat here by Matt Adams.
Second baseman playing further over towards first base, or actually the shortstop is now. Second baseman's in the middle of the arch. They're short right field.
3-2 pitch. Adams out to center field. Look out, the big man has done it again. Home run number 3, Matt Adams. Outstanding at bat from Matt Adams. Fell behind 0-2. Fouled off a couple of very tough pitches. Took a borderline pitch that was called a ball. Then the big man smokes one to center field.
I go back to not this past spring training, but 2 years ago. And Berkman still with the ball club. Big Mac, Mark McGuire, the hitting coach, and they were talking about all the new young hitters that they saw in spring training, and they were very complimentary of everybody. This guy could be a pretty good player. This guy could do this. This guy could do that. Matt Adams is going to be a star.
It's making it harder and harder for Mike Matheny not to write his name in that lineup card more often.
I don't know how he keeps him out of the lineup with this kind of start. I mean, what else does he have to do? And you've got to play that hot hand sometimes. And right now, he is the hottest of the bunch. Ground ball to the right side. And Kozma is over 2. This is our Nissan drive of the game. Just a rope out to center field and over that wall and into the grassy area where the famous home run of David Freese's landed in Game 6 of 2011. Right on it. And Adams with his third.
And he earned that pitch by working the count to 3-2. He earned the shot at a pitch right down central. Estrada challenged him and lost.
Hi.
0-1 pitch to Descalso. I know, Rick, you were talking between innings. You are a really big fan of this shift, especially with Descalso.
Yeah. You're being sarcastic.
No, never.
People may be surprised to know that you are sarcastic from time to time.
Not on Twitter, though, Rick. I am all business on Twitter. Matter of fact, I tweeted earlier that Al Raboski was sensational in his first pregame show appearance and co-host.
Bad form for you to say your own Twitter account, so I'll say it for you. It's Danny Mac TV if you want to get all the up-to-date news about Dan McLaughlin and all things Cardinals.
Oh, scoops. And I've got all the scoops.
Otherwise known as scoops.
Danny Mac TV, and yours is Ricky H 49, and Ricky H 49 has up to about 500,000 followers. And Al, how about you? Your Twitter handle?
Non-existent.
Okay. We're working on it.
Not really.
Hashtag developing. But I have tweeted out some. I've tweeted out some wonderful photos of you, Al. And
that's my account.
Yep. I know fans have really appreciated seeing you behind the scenes. Yesterday it was you and Fredbird up here in the booth. Here's a 2-1 pitch to Jaime Garcia.
And just got a comment on Twitter from a Cardinal fan that has been hearing all the talk about the designated hitter perhaps eventually ending up in the National League, and their suggestion is we do it next week so Matt Adams can play more. How about that?
I wonder if it's in the thinking in the back of John Mozeliak's mind that, hey, the DH is around the corner, it looks like, and we've got Matt Adams, who can only play first base, mind you. He's young. Do we keep him around? Is he a chip? Whatever the case may be in those high-end talks that they get into.
More than a chip right now. He's a star in the making.
Always interesting to see this. Estrada 91. Garcia has not even broken 90, but with his movement, as we talked about in that home opener, doesn't matter. Let's see now if he really starts to settle in. He's into the 5th. He's allowed 5 base hits, and the Cardinals have jumped out to a 3-run lead. Got to see what happens when they watch us on TV. Same result.
Dan with 5 hits and a walk, an error committed behind him. That's only his 61st pitch. Those double plays really helped out.
You bet.
For some reason he has trouble getting ahead of Estrada, his counterpart. Remember, he was 3-0 last time before he came back and got him.
We mentioned it already, but the Brewers will be better before this season is over. Braun will go on a hot streak. They'll get Corey Hart back.
Back to Garcia as he makes the play. One away.
But right now, this team is not very good offensively, and maybe worse than that, guys, they're struggling in their bullpen.
Beautiful day here at Busch Stadium. Cardinals pitching has been unbelievable here in this last handful of games, this stretch. Dan, Al, Rick, Jim with you. One of the offensive heroes thus far, Matt Adams, and Aoki digs in for the 3rd time. Rick, you mentioned how they have such a book on him with the shift that we talked about earlier with Matt Adams. Aoki hits it down the right field line, and it's off the top of the wall. Played perfectly out right by Craig, and Aoki is in with a 1-out double. But it leads me into my question about, with Matt Adams and that book on the shift, you wonder how long it takes for the rest of the league all of a sudden to get a book on him at this level. Not necessarily what he did in the minor leagues, but what's going on right now.
Here's the pitch right down the middle to Aoki, and he has some power to be able to turn on the ball. We saw him hit a home run against Jason Mott a year ago. Well, one thing's for sure about Matt Adams. You can shift all you want, but you can't play a guy up there on that grassy knoll on the other side of the fence. And as long as he's doing that, it doesn't matter. But word travels very quickly in this game. And the video is available for every major league game, for every major league video department. And there are people studying it right now, I'm sure, in the Pirates organization, Phillies organization, Washington Nationals, because that's where the Cardinals are headed when they leave here today.
0-1 pitch, 0-2.
Milwaukee has not scored a run since Tuesday. They came in, I think, 25 innings. Remember, they had a rainout also. They have scores. Cardinal pitching is trying to get to the 37th consecutive inning.
It's the strikeout. Been pitching out of jams all afternoon, but has come away unscathed. 4 strikeouts for Jaime.
A lot of head movement for Segura on this swing, trying to follow the pitch, and his head just kind of yanks out, and all of a sudden he's looking back in the other direction, hoping for Yachty to have dropped that ball. It looked almost as if he didn't see the spin on that ball very well.
Ryan Braun is 6 for 31 off of Jaime Garcia. He's not swinging the bat quite up to his standards, but he's had his problems with Jaime.
This was June or July, first base open right here.
Yeah, definitely.
You'd walk him, wouldn't you?
Or at least pitching around him.
Time is called. Braun today is grounded out, also reached on an error.
But that's the protection, Dan, that you were talking about. Maybe you would, maybe you wouldn't if Corey Hart was on deck and swinging the bat well. Or Ramos Ramirez.
About protection behind Braun is about 1 for 30 since Ramirez has been out.
I mean, that's the pitch right there.
I've seen him jumping all over the place. Can't stay still.
Well, that outside portion, Al, we mentioned it last night that the Cardinals have just pounded the outside corner on Ryan Braun, and he looks uncomfortable in trying to get to that pitch.
Remember, he missed last weekend with a neck strain, and because of all the disablements and the unhealthy bodies, he's back in there this week, but he's not 100%.
Reaching forward again, and Jaime's got that great late movement away from the righties too.
Well, swinging through changeups down and away doesn't make your neck feel any better, I can tell you that. He's very much off balance.
Cardinals pitching this week. 9th inning of the home opener, the 9 earned runs, a nightmare. Since that time, 40 2/3, 1 earned run allowed.
Outstanding.
Oh, 2 on Braun. Gets him to reach again. Carpenter had to avoid the runner, and they get Braun by a half step. Just a little tapper to the left side, and a nifty play made by Matt Carpenter down at third. Garcia again out of a little jam. The new premium McWrap, and visit cardinals.com/McWrap to get $6 tickets. McDonald's and the Cardinals. Fresh is in season. Well, the Cardinals have a 3-run lead, 6 hits aside. Difference in this game, Milwaukee has stranded 6. So Jaime is pitched in and out of trouble. John Jay 0 for 2, lined out to right, a screamer to Aoki. Last time up, pitch count at 70 for Estrada. While they have dealt with injuries to their everyday lineup, starting pitching has been no good outside of Kyle Loesch for the most part. And their bullpen has had all kinds of issues. Their closer has been taken out of that spot, John Axford. We saw him pitch a scoreless inning yesterday in the blowout. Jay Hits it off the end of the bat. Drops in for a hit. Past Aoki. And Jay on his way to second base. That's a guy that over in Japan was a multiple Gold Glove winner.
He didn't get a very good jump on the ball. And then he comes in here and it falls and gets by him. Center fielder backing up the play. Gomez retrieves it, but didn't get a good jump. Then he got too close to it, couldn't get the one hopper. It just sounded kind of like a clunker too. You know, many times outfielders can read, especially the center fielder, read where the ball hits the bat, kind of determine whether it's going to carry or fall short of you.
Carpenter, sound baseball there. The ground ball to the right side, advancing the runner. Jay to third, and here come the big bats again.
We've already talked about improving the Cardinal bench, which was an issue from a year ago. They wanted more pop on the bench, but the other thing that Mike Matheny set out to do this spring training, and that's why you see all those high fives in the dugout, is do a better job of getting the guy from second to third with nobody out. Cardinals last in baseball a year ago in that stat, getting a player into scoring position for your RBI man, and some of it's a matter of will, some of it's a matter of giving yourself up. Carpenter does a good job to give Holiday the opportunity.
I thought Holiday wasn't clutch. Well, 4 for 6. I think so much of the focus, we've heard it from the fans, is
there's a segment of fan base.
Yeah,
there's a big argument. There's an argument about that.
You know,
sure.
about whether or not Holiday is a clutch performer. And look at the numbers. I mean, my goodness, what else does a guy need to do?
You talked about the ball jumping off the bat of Matt Holliday. I would not want to be an infielder right now.
Tell them our story, Dan.
The pitcher?
When I came back to you, what you were talking about, a third baseman playing in McGuire.
Yeah. And that was you said, well, Dan, try to be a pitcher when he's hitting. Good luck.
Oh, I don't want to be that guy either.
No, me neither. But I think the point, though, on Holiday is that he did have the drop against the Dodgers in the playoffs. Obviously, a key moment that stands out. And then he signed the big contract, got off to a slow start. He admitted after that he had put a ton of pressure on himself because of the money, because of the deal. But at the end of the season, you look up and his numbers are some of the best in baseball. Rounds it foul. And you just wonder if he was, let's say, making the minimum as opposed to what he makes. Would fans or media look at him the same way? And the answer is no.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, as a player is offered the contract based on what he's done on the past, and then you just try to live up to your career numbers. But when you get the big contract, a lot of responsibility comes with it.
2-2. Aoki. Will they test him here? Shallow right. He's under it. Makes the catch. That's right when I needed Holiday to come through. Right there.
Yes, you did.
Man.
You were saying, say the segment of Cardinal fans?
Give me that media guy. Let's go over the numbers.
Well, 4 times he's driven in over 100 runs in a season, but this is not one of them. There's John Jay. He started to break, and my guess is that he'd have been out by about 10 feet with the strong arm of Aoki and Wright.
And I think you do have to consider that Alan Craig is coming to the plate. Even though it's 2 outs, he led the league last year in driving in runners, 400 batting average, and over the last 2 years has been right there at 400. 397 runners in scoring position over the last 2 years, second best in all of baseball. And this year he's 5 for 12, 416.
So the expression is you get him on, you get him over, and you get him in. And so far the Cardinals are 2/3 of the way through that. Now it's up to Alan Craig to finish the job.
Cardinals have had that success again. A lot of 2-out base hits, driving in runners.
1-1 pitch. Slowly hit down to third. Gloved. And a nice play with a strong throw to get Craig. So the Cardinals strand a runner, but they lead this ball game as we head to the 6th. We're on Fox Sports Midwest against the Pirates tomorrow at 5:30. It's our Budweiser What's on Tap. Very good against St. Louis in his last 5 starts. We highlight that. And the Cardinals begin a 3-city road trip: Pittsburgh, Philly, and Washington. So a very early season test on the road for St. Louis. It's Lynn and McDonald tomorrow night.
Be interesting to see how good the Pirates are this year after kind of stalling towards the end a year ago, and the Phillies trying to rebound from a rough year filled with injuries, and we all know how good the Nationals can be. So it'll be a very good test, as you say. The Cardinals now up to 37 straight scoreless innings from their pitching staff.
Here is Ricky Weeks, and a breaking ball is taken low. Weeks in a key spot in this game. After Ryan Braun back in the 3rd had reached on an error from Carpenter, bounced into a 5-4-3 inning-ending double play. Two balls and 1 strike.
Milwaukee made a strong push in the second half to try to get back in the race, and Ricky Weeks ended up hitting .230 because he had a strong second half. He was batting .190 for most of the season, and then had a little rush, got it up to .230 for the year.
It's tailing away and taken for a ball, so leadoff walk. We have a very big weekend coming up against the Pirates. The Alan Craig replica bat is Saturday, April 27th. So kids will be able to take home the replica bat. Also the 2006 World Series ring giveaway. And the Carlos Beltran bobblehead, all coming up the end of the month against Pittsburgh.
You know, in a world where you've got a lot of athletes who are kind of look at me types that like to do a lot of self-promoting, Alan Craig is the opposite of that. Very understated, just keeps doing his business.
Oh, that's coming from a broadcaster that's promoting his Twitter account.
Well, I'm not saying I'm not one of the other guys.
Ricky, age 49. How about a double play? It's slowly hit. Can they turn it? On to first. You bet. Double play. 4-6-3. Lucroy running out of the box, and still Kozma with a strong throw able to turn the double play.
Third double play for the Cardinals in support of Jaime Garcia. Kozma clears out. Strong throw in time. Everything done well. Weeks tries to do his job to take out Kozma. Matt Adams looks pretty comfortable at first base.
Double play in each of 3 in the last 4 innings turned by the Cardinals.
So 2 outs, and Maldonado, Martin Maldonado, looks at a strike. Fly ball out to right. This should do it for the top of the 6th. 0 after 0 after 0 being put up by this Cardinals pitching staff. On the Run to bring you the largest timed 5K race in St. Louis. Girls on the Run, nonprofit organization that helps prepare thousands of girls for a lifetime of healthy living. The race is held May 11th downtown. Register now at girlsontherunstlouis.org. Myself and Pat ran in that last year representing Fox Sports Midwest. The Fox Sports Midwest girls were there as well. And it's going to be exciting to see Ricky put together his 7-minute miles that beautiful Saturday coming up. As Yachty pops one foul.
I'm assuming Pat Parrish finished ahead of you as a former track star.
Don't go out on a limb here.
And a 4-minute miler. Pat Parrish at 1 point at Drake. And now he's running our post-game and pre-game. Very well, I might add.
0-1 pitch to Yachty. Right now, Molina ranked first among active National League catchers in games played, innings caught, assists, caught stealing percentage, pickoffs. The list goes on and on. 1 ball and 2 strikes.
He 1 for 2 today. He's hit Estrada very well. 583 average with a home run and 3 RBIs.
Nice note here from Stephen Aubuchon. Big fan of ours, and we appreciate him watching and taking in every word that we bring to the fans at home. Stephen Aubuchon, we appreciate it. Here's a 1-2 pitch. 2-2.
One thing they've said about Estrada is he could be rolling along pitching well, and when he loses it in a hurry. Very reliant on his changeup being an effective pitch for him, and if he loses it, doesn't really have the plus stuff to get it away with it.
And right on cue, there's that fastball. Tell you what, right when we need something to happen for all of us, we've gone out on a limb. It's gone the other way.
It happens.
That's why they pay you and Al the big bucks. Dan, Al, Rick, and Jim with you today on Fox Sports Midwest.
Activity in the Brewers bullpen for the first time.
Breaking ball and a strike. Nice round of applause for Matt Adams, who is today 2 for 2, a single and a home run into center field. They're straight away in the outfield and deep.
Orslani is the left-hander warming up. Signed as a free agent this year after pitching last year with the Nationals. Former #1 draft pick of the Pirates.
And the 0-2. Credit Adams in that previous at bat. Similar to this, he fell behind 0-2. Worked the count full, fouled off some pitches, and then drove one to center. One-two pitch. I think you got to bench him now. He hasn't done enough lately. A strikeout of Adams, who has just been fantastic.
There's the changeup, the equalizer, down and away. 2 for 3 afternoon so far for Adams, and the batting average just barely goes up. Came in at 643.
And Adams on the year now is 11 for 17. He leads the club in home runs, and he's tied for second in RBIs and one off the leader, Holiday.
Clay Buchholz of Boston took a no-hitter into the 8th against Tampa Bay, and that was broken up by left fielder Kelly Johnson of the Rays. Right field, and the catch is made off the bat of Cosma by Aoki. We jump ahead to the 7th. Cardinals on top, 3-0. also in our AT Twitter poll. Who is your all-time favorite Cardinals defensive player? They have a current guy out there right now, Molina, but it's Edmonds. The flair for the dramatic when you think about Jimmy Ballgame, one of the greatest center fielders defensively in the history of baseball. Some believe a borderline Hall of Famer. That was his catch in 2004 off the bat of Osmus. To me, that was the best that we saw. That was unbelievable. Even he said he was shocked by that one in Cincinnati.
Got his armpit all the way over the wall, and a couple there in Cincinnati. The very first one was in Kansas City.
Right.
He went back on a ball and just dove towards the wall and made the catch.
Oh, he loses the bat. Watch out. Into the first row behind the Brewers dugout.
Fan returning the bat. Might want to put a little extra pine tar on it.
0-2 the count on Carlos Gomez.
Amazing to me that people don't get hurt.
Oh, 2 pitch. Inevitably, we will get fans that ask us about Juan Encarnacion after the line drive off the bat of Aaron Miles a number of years ago now. And that was it for Encarnacion as far as his major league career.
I did correspond with Juan via email this past off season. He's living in Florida. He was involved with a couple charitable endeavors and everything, and I tried to talk a little bit about it, and he says I'm fine, you know, but he was, obviously the injury was so severe he'd never would be able to play baseball again. But living your life and doing some very good charitable work.
Also was very active in the Dominican too, I believe. The 2-2 pitch, ground ball hit to short. One away.
Cosma didn't get Gomez the last time, and he beat out an infield hit that came early on. He wasn't going to waste any time with this ground ball. He knows the speed of Gomez, and he's going to set and throw this time instead of flipping the ball to first base, and that's what experience does for you. You make not really a mistake, but guy beats one out, so you learn from it.
And he hit it a little harder and right at him, so he didn't have to kind of surround the ball, try to get some momentum behind the throw. And
Yuniesky Betancourt, 1 ball, 1 strike with 1 out, nobody on, and I think it's safe to say that it hasn't been easy for Jaime Garcia today. Adams thought about going after it. Now it's Garcia, and it's a base hit with 1 out. See, Adams really was in between as to whether or not to go for it or to get back to the bag, and it's a base hit. Reminder, we have the Carlos Beltran bobblehead coming up. That's Sunday, April 28th, presented by First National Bank. Pirates and the Cardinals. We had over 42,000, I believe, today. When I talked about it the other night with the temperatures in the 40s for the Stan Musial evening on a Friday, only 5% return tickets, no shows, so to speak, and amazing crowds here early on the first homestand.
Chris Davis, he's pinch hitting here. Seventh round pick out of the 2009 draft.
So that's it for Estrada. The Cardinals will see the bullpen the rest of the afternoon.
Davis between AA and AAA, hit .349, 12 home runs and 47 RBIs in just 76 games last year. Led the team in home runs and RBIs in spring.
Outfield is shallow, and that's a line near the dugout. Remember when Encarnacion was hit, they extended the fencing there, the little backdrop that's near the on-deck circles. That was uncovered, that little area right there, for I guess it was a year or two.
And look, the goal is not for us to make people be fearful as they're at the ballpark, but you should be aware. You should have your kind of head on a swivel and be ready. And you look at the first base coach and the third base coach, they are now wearing helmets as protection, but yet there are fans closer than they are to the action. And you'd think these guys would certainly be aware of how to get away from a ball. So any fan around the dugout, we just want you to love the game, love the seats, enjoy being at the ballpark, but keep your eyes open.
Yeah. 0-2 here on Davis. Short lead at first, and that's tapped foul. So our crowd today is 42,645. 42,645. Not a bad weekend.
Mojica warming up the Cardinals pen just in case, along with Schoop.
Swung on and missed. Another strikeout for Garcia. So the pinch hitter Davis is down. The line on Estrada did give up the home run, 94 pitches. Strikeout there for Jaime. 7 hits, 3 runs, 7 strikeouts against the Cardinals lineup. Well hit, right field. Got underneath it. Just enough room for right fielder Alan Craig today. Time to stretch on this Sunday afternoon. Day baseball here in your home of the Cardinals, Fox Sports Midwest. .com. Email the booth. George in South City, who is the best catcher you have ever seen play. You guys cover centuries of baseball, so I'll ask you. I'll start with you, Al. How about the best you've seen?
Johnny Bench.
bar none?
Well, like I said, Ted Simmons was a better hitter, pure hitter, but Bench had almost 400 home runs and 10 Gold Gloves, Hall of Famer, and just his presence in a game.
Well, let me ask you this to follow up. Anybody better defensively than Yachty that you've seen?
I think Yachty is going to be right there, but I think I got to see it a little bit longer.
Longevity.
He's like half of Bench in longevity, about that 5 Gold Gloves, 10 Gold Gloves. He's becoming much more of a hitter. Bench was a 40 home run guy.
I think after the Johnny Bench era, it was not as simple an answer. I think you had guys that were really good at different things. Tony Pena was good at some things, and then you had Jim Sundberg, who was an outstanding catcher as well during that time. And
the outs of the hitter.
Yeah. Here's Descalso facing the lefty, Tom Gorzolani. Number of years for Gorzolani in the Central Division, whether it be with Pittsburgh or the Chicago Cubs. Now pitching with Milwaukee. Descalso, pass short. They had to shift on, and this time he beats it. Another play that, if you're straight up, potentially would have been a closer play to being out.
Ty Wigginton is going to pinch hit for Garcia. He did his job. 7 shutout innings. Rosenthal warming up, so we assume he's going to come in the 8th. And then box. What will the score be?
Here's Ty Wigginton hitting 182 with an RBI this year.
To see that book on Descalso that says that he only hits the ball on the ground to the right side of the infield. That just doesn't really match well with what I think of Daniel Descalso as a guy that uses the whole field.
And correct me if I'm wrong, I don't remember other teams putting a shift on for Daniel.
I can't think of one.
No.
Oh, 0-1 pitch to Ty Wigginton. 0-2. In the dirt, and Descalso back to the bag. Folks on Twitter have jumped in with that catcher's question that we had, and great points here about Pudge Rodriguez being one of those that we should mention, definitely.
How far you want to go back? Yogi Berra, Campanella.
One-two pitch. Wigginton with a drive into right center field. Hangs up there for Aoki. Descalso draws the throw back to the bag at first. Al, you and I remember a couple years ago, really broke down the career of Ted Simmons and whether or not he should be in the Hall of Fame. And strictly on numbers, he's right there. Unfortunately, he didn't play on many good teams, and you wonder about the exposure to the rest of the league and the media for him to warrant what we believe should be at least in the conversation, minimum.
Well, I thought
for Hall of Fame.
One of the biggest injustices that he did not get the 5% to stay on the ballot. Now, it is my understanding that he is going to be reviewed by the Veterans Committee. Even though it's been past 15 years, the Veteran Committee can go back and right some injustices, and I understand he's going to be up for consideration in that panel, and I think that is good.
And you talk about defensive catchers, you have to throw in Tom Pagnozzi, Gold Glove winner with the Cardinals. Very, very solid behind the plate, but the guy that nobody really remembers very well, who was maybe the best defensive catcher I ever threw to, was Mike LaValliere. In terms of blocking the ball, calling a game, in my mind, was the best that I saw.
Played on some very good teams in Pittsburgh. Unfortunately for him and another former Cardinal, Andy Van Slyke, they were so close but just couldn't get over the hump. And since that time, they have not been above 500, and that is hard to believe.
Could this be the year?
Good jump by Descalso on his way to second. Not even sliding.
Now, do you think he stole that off the catcher? It's strongly recommended to always slide, though.
You get more of an opportunity to get hurt trying to slow down at a base, just as Daniel does, because you got to stop on the dime and the tag almost in time as well. But I think Daniel thought there was not going to be a throw.
1 ball and 2 strikes in the dirt, and secondary lead almost took Descalso to third. He retreats back to the bag.
So Descalso now has both Cardinal stolen bases.
Got Billy Hamilton.
He's going to be fun to watch, isn't he?
Yeah, young man in the Reds organization, prospect. It's a shortstop that's they're trying to move him to center field. Stole 155 bases last year in the minor leagues for Cincy.
He's got to be able to hit too. You can't steal 155 bases if you're not on a lot.
You would think he'd have to hit at least 300. But that is the minor leagues.
Understand.
A 3-2 pitch. And a walk by Jay. 1-out walk, and it brings in Matt Carpenter. Carpenter with a ground rule double earlier in the ball game off Estrada. Last time up, productive out as he grounded out to second, advanced a runner. We always talk to the other broadcasters of the various teams we face, and they all come away saying, when I watch Matt Carpenter, he seems to be fundamentally sound. I think that's probably the best way to describe him at this level.
Doesn't seem lost like a lot of young players, just trying to figure their way out and find their place in the game. He's very much a student of the game.
How about how he works the count too? Good against lefties. He's hitting about 280 against lefties since the beginning of last season. 1 out, 2 runners on.
So no real obvious holes in his game, Al, and been talking quite a bit lately about, I just think, I'd like your reaction to this, I just think that there's a time in his career he's going to hit 320 in the big leagues.
I know you felt like he could compete for a batting championship.
Yeah.
And I'd like to think that that's his ceiling, but you know, he's proven to be very sound fundamental, as everyone says, and you know, he's got a good knowledge of the strike zone. Rarely do you ever see him take a wild swing. Usually very much under control. He can play enough positions now that you know he's going to be in there virtually every day.
One pitch to Carpenter. Now, you brought up Yogi Berra, and a couple of folks on Twitter have reminded us 1950 Yogi Berra, 656 plate appearances. He struck out a total of 12 times. Amazing.
Look at some of the great home run hitters. You know, back in Yogi's era, Stan, Red.
Carpenter on a hop to second. Weeks double play. 4-6-3.
They wouldn't strike out 50 times a year.
We head to the 8th, and St. Louis on top. us. Let's go to our studio. Bommarito Sports Update with Pat Paris. All right, thank you. It's our Chevy call to the pen. Hard throwing right-hander Trevor Rosenthal. He's fun to watch.
Seems to have found a home in that 8th inning spot in the Cardinals bullpen. Mitchell Boggs had that role a year ago with Jason Mott out. Boggs has the 9th, Rosenthal the 8th, and expect high 90s and a good curveball from Rosenthal. And there's the curveball, tough to hit right at the knees.
Numbers on Trevor so far this year with the 8 strikeouts in 7 innings. 0-1 to Segura is popped foul out of play. Nothing in 2. Cardinals pitching staff starting to move into very exclusive territory when you think about the history of this organization and all the innings that they have stockpiled with zeros.
Nothing game. It's tough for Mike Matheny not to go to his 8th and 9th inning guys, but I am getting a little concerned about some of the rust on guys like Kelly and Salas.
Randy Choate,
Zebchinski, both lefties.
Yeah. But Kelly and Salas have not pitched on this homestand, have they?
Up the middle, and it's off the bag. Base hit. Segura stays put at first. Leadoff hit.
We've had a number of folks on Twitter that have asked us to research how many innings the Cardinals have right now in terms of scoreless inning and what's the record. And as we look back, Dan, the first on this list, 53 innings, but that spanned 2 seasons, was September through April of 63. Currently at 39 innings, they're just 3 innings behind the second number on that list, which happened in July of 1943. That's just how epic this pitching performance has been this homestand for the Cardinals.
53 innings. The top one was over a span of 2 years, right?
Right. Well hit, right field, and gone. And so is the streak. 2-run homer for Ryan Braun. Here come the boos.
There for Ryan Braun. Second year in a row he's playing under a cloud of suspicion, and maybe that's why the boos are coming out.
Fastball up in the zone. They tried to get it away. Dan, you've talked about they're trying to pitch Braun away, and that pitch comes back over the plate. It's something he could handle. And he is dangerous even when he's not swinging the bat well. And we have ourselves a ball game here.
Fly ball into right and out of play.
Mahika has gotten back up, thrown in the Cardinal bullpen. Nobody in the Brewers pen.
One and two. Swung on and missed. Strikeout of Ricky Weeks. Rick, you talked about it the other day that Rosenthal just gets it and goes. He is one of the fastest workers out of any bullpen in the league.
Yeah, he actually works fast, and he also is pretty quick with his pace. And I'm not sure I would coach that or teach that, and I'm not sure whether that's just something that's natural for him. But he really is quick in the beginning of his motion, and a lot of times quick leads you to be a little bit out of sorts in terms of your command. And you know, most pitchers you would prefer, almost like in golf, the kind of the slow backswing and then finish strong, but he's really quick in his motion.
A lot of secondary pitches now, gone away from the fastball.
One ball and 2 strikes.
Good fastball there. I think the hardest one he's thrown of the afternoon, 98.
And even to this batter, he looks like he's slowed down a bit his delivery, and he's a little less maybe out of control, or just a little smoother.
Again, Adams has to go back to the bag. There's 2 outs.
Don't you get the idea that they've asked Adams to try to go, you know, be a little more aggressive on balls hit to the right side? Of course, we have never seen anybody more aggressive than Albert Pujols, but that's about the 3rd time. His initial step was going towards the ball, going to his right, and then trying to show that judgment, whether he recognizes, okay, it's going to be the second baseman, I got to get back there.
And a fastball right down the middle to Maldonado. You could see why fans, they just fall in love with watching Trevor Rosenthal. I mean, it is fun to watch this guy pitch. He's hitting triple digits. That one in 97. It's like the power of Matt Adams. You like to watch him hit.
Right.
Fastball away. But reality is, though, he got high ceiling, high ceiling.
You bet.
And a lot of people have been trying to make him the closer. It's not the case yet. He has to go through a process, and really he hasn't shown that he can really handle the 8th inning yet.
1 ball and 2 strikes.
The first 2 times he tried to protect a 1-run lead, he lost it. Last time out, he was successful, and in this game, you know, he took a 3-0 lead, and now it's 3-2. So still a work in progress, but he sure loved the high side. He'll get it figured out.
Inside.
Well, it's hard to teach 97. You either have that or you don't.
Right.
And very few people on this planet can do what he can do. And then the next step is refining his pitches so he's throwing to smaller spots and hitting those spots.
Got him. Strikeout. Took a little something off that pitch at 91 from Rosenthal. Bottom of the 8th rolls in. with a hit, with the exception of Cosma. A lot of damage done from Matt Adams today. 2 for 3 with a solo home run. Mixes in a single as well. The Subway box score on this Sunday afternoon as Jim Henderson takes over to face Mike Matheny's club here in the bottom of the 8th.
And we understand he is currently their closer. 30 years of age, and last year he did get to the big leagues for 36 games, but he started back in 2003 and finally he was selected by Montreal back in 2003. Rule 5 draft selection.
Barnes Jewish maker, difference maker here today. Barnes Jewish Hospital difference maker. Matt Holliday is 3 for 8. You think about what he's done in this series.
And we got to thank BJC. It's going to be the new Hungo sponsor.
All right.
So he's got a big league fastball and 70 days of major league experience, pitching a long time. Like to pull for people like this.
The Cardinals had not allowed a run in 39 innings. Brewers had not scored in 32.
I think our friends at BJC can fix the Hungo that I accidentally.
You did not accidentally.
Up.
Once again, the time you say you twisted my neck to see how far it would go, it broke off.
Yeah.
And now you want BJC.
Could have happened to anybody.
BJC could fix it. I know they could.
Pat waiting for Matt Holliday. I think maybe we should bring that Hungo back and have a very much of a likeness of Al a couple of years ago and throw that neck brace on him.
I have it at home. I'll bring it in. It doesn't bobble anymore.
My head doesn't either.
How about an insurance run?
Spoiled by Holliday.
Henderson, another Canadian like Axford. He's from Alberta.
Henderson had very good numbers in the minor leagues, and then, as Al was telling you, finally getting a shot with Milwaukee.
11th year in pro ball.
Not many of the selections of the Montreal Expos left around Major League Baseball. On the inside corner, strikeout of Holliday. This copyrighted telecast is presented by the authority of the St. Louis Cardinals and may not be reproduced or retransmitted in any form. And the accounts and descriptions of this game may not be disseminated without the express written consent of the St. Louis Cardinals. I want to thank our crew all week long, the best in the business here in St. Louis. Those that help us out every single day. Great to see that Tom Mead, our outstanding director year after year, had his father here this week. His father was one of the original employees of the Minnesota Twins.
I believe for 43 years he was their PR director.
Be inducted into their Twins Hall of Fame June 14th.
A chance briefly to talk to Mr. Me, and of course I met him before.
Out to right. Not deep enough.
Javons will be coming in, trying to close this game out. Molina will try and give him a little more cushion. Atlanta Braves closed out their ball game as they won 9-0 over the Nationals. They swept them this weekend. Braves, is that 9 or 10 in a row?
9 in a row, and now they are 11-1.
Roy Halladay won his first ball game. Should see him in Philadelphia that series.
Cliff Lee's 2-0. He's pitching tomorrow, I believe, and he's looking forward to having a bounce back season. Be interesting to see if the Phillies are going to contend or not. The Nationals and the Braves, the two teams we're talking about, certainly everybody's choice. Mets actually off to a good start. They've got a couple of good starting pitchers. Maybe not enough offense, but the East Division is going to be fun to watch.
0-2 the count on one of the most popular players here in St. Louis, Yadier Molina. Hot shot down to third and a diving stop. They take the hit away from Yadi. Outstanding play down there at third, and even the folks here in St. Louis give him a round of applause. Mitchell Boggs coming in.
Game on the post-game edition of Missouri Lottery Cardinals Live. Pat Paris will be with Lil Dunk, Chris Duncan. Jaime Garcia keeps Milwaukee in check. They'll break down his day. Another big day for Big City. To look at Matt Adams' fast start, plus Mike Matheny's post-game news conference. Mitchell Boggs will do the pitching for the Cardinals. We head back to the booth, and Dan, Rick, and Al, guys.
Thank you, Jim. And Mitchell Boggs picked up the save in Game 1 of this series. It's our Chevy call to the pen. Made it interesting there late in that game, as we will not show this particular individual, but there is a individual not wearing a uniform that is on the field. And when I say uniform, I mean Cardinals uniform. While we have a moment, Cardinals baseball is brought to you by Bud Light, the sure sign of a good time. Here we go. And by your quality Ford dealers. Shane Robinson waiting to take his position where this individual is at. And all Mitchell Boggs can do now is just stand outside the mound. And wait. Not quite the incident that we saw in Philly where the gentleman was tasered. Now that was something. So here we go. Carlos Gomez to face Mitchell Boggs. A 3-2 St. Louis lead here in the top of the ninth. Pair of singles for Gomez. The fastball misses low and away.
Dan, I was very impressed with Mitchell Boggs being able to come back after that rough first outing. And rough is maybe an understatement. And opening day here, just an awful day for him. But he came back the very next day, got back up on the horse, and got the job done. So that's the way it works. And you just hope that he gets enough positive kind of reinforcement, get on a roll. The next thing you know, you forget about that particular day. Although that day, I know for him, Al, very hard to forget.
Oh, it hangs with you a long time, especially every time you look up and look at your ERA. You take 6 earned runs in a third of an inning. You have to do a lot of shutout pitching to get that down. But as we say, if you're going to be a short reliever, you have to have a very short memory. You can't dwell on your success, and you can't just let bad games eat away at you. You have to clear your mind and be ready to think about tomorrow's game.
One, two, liner into right. Robinson won't get there. Leadoff hit. The good speed of Gomez is on. AT&T Uverse Rewind as we recap what's happened thus far. Estrada, Brewers have to be happy with that. The 6 innings, the 3 runs allowed, 7 hits. Jaime Garcia, you know the Cardinals are happy about that. No runs allowed in his 7 innings. And Matt Adams 2 for 3. And his home run right now, the difference in this game.
Base hit with good speed on the base paths. 1-run game, that becomes a real big factor.
Yuniesky Betancourt, the single grounded into a fielder's choice and struck out.
Gomez does run well, but the Cardinals also trying to find out whether Betancourt's bunting or not to see if he'll tip it off, and that's part of the reason why Boggs is throwing to first base, to see if he'll kind of go up on his bat handle or not. Matt Carpenter at third, trying to read what he's going to do. Poised to come in.
A strike.
And the classic baseball theory over the years has always been you play for a tie at home and you play for a win on the road. So you don't give up outs as a road team. Hit and run is also a possibility.
Yeah, tough to win on the road in extra innings, so you go for the win.
A liner right center. This could be trouble. It is. Gomez on his way to third. He's being waved in. And he will score to tie it up. Blown save for Boggs. It's a 3-3 game. And the go-ahead run is in scoring position.
Always run the bit of a risk when you take out one of your big boppers. And talking about Allen Craig in right field and put in Robinson. Now Robinson is a superior defender, recognized one of the best in the Cardinal organization, but it didn't make any difference on the 2 base hits this inning. One in front of him and one in the gap. And right now you just got to keep this game tied.
And Schaefer asked to bunt, and strike one.
Schaefer is their best defensive outfielder in their organization for the 3rd straight year, according to Baseball America. Last year at AAA, he had 11 home runs, 40 RBIs, 16 steals. Led the team in runs, triples, and total bases. He's trying to get man over, not drive him in.
Molina goes to third and late. He's safe. Might have been able to let that roll foul. He took a chance.
It would have rolled foul and Yachty just felt like he had the out in front of him. It's a tag play and not a force play, and he knows that. But see, it's rolling foul, but he picks it up in fair territory, gets it there, and too late with the tag.
Split second to make a choice. Do I let it go foul? Do I go to third, or do I go to first? And he has literally a millisecond to come up with the right decision based on all the factors there, and may have made the wrong choice. Schaefer runs well too. I'm not sure it would have been that easy a play to get him to first base.
So activity in the Cardinals bullpen. Still nobody out. Runners at first and third, and here is Aoki in the top of the lineup.
So Jaime Garcia should be 3-0.
Yep,
now he's 1-0.
2 blown saves behind his great pitching this week.
That'll be it for Mitchell Boggs. Three game here at the top of the ninth. Corners. We're tied up 3-3 here in the ninth.
So far, Choda's been very good at stranding runners, but this is a tough chore for him with runners at first and third here in the ninth inning, and he'll face really the only lefty that you've got to worry about in this Brewers order. Very predominantly right-handed hitting team, but Aoki good at putting the ball in play, and the Cardinals are halfway in, if not all the way in now, at the short and second positions, and certainly in at the corners with Carpenter and Matt Adams. The outfield shallow.
And he showed his inherited 8 runners prior to today, and only 1 scored on a sac fly.
Infield drawn in for Aoki. Just a safety bunt right there, not a squeeze, and a lot of times you'll not see a squeeze put on, especially with a hitter that hits from the left side.
See,
the runner wasn't charging down either.
If you get that bunt down, the runner at third base has the option whether he's going to try and score or not. It's not the suicide where he's running blindly. And as Danny says, you know, a lot of times you won't do it with a left-hander because they just pitch out.
Bunting again, it's popped up, and Yachty's got it.
Thank you.
I don't know if I've ever seen a bat shatter like that on a bunt. Look at the other part of his bat. It's just outside the batter's box. The bat boy just went and picked it up. Huge chunk of his bat busted thanks to Randy Choate, and You two are the experts, so I'll let you explain why he's bunting here.
Well, I'd like to try to figure that out myself, but I don't think I've ever seen a bat shatter like that, as you say, on a bunt attempt. That's really in the kitchen of Aoki. And to have a safety squeeze, the runners really didn't react as if it even was a safety squeeze situation. So I don't know if that was on his own or just a miscommunication, but any way you look at it, it worked in the Cardinals' favor.
Edward Mujica coming in. 3-3 game. Aoki, by the way, struck out a total of 55 times in 520 at-bats, and still we're trying to figure out why he's bunting here. Let's take a look at our shortstop and what he does.
You're going to watch Pete Kozma, still trying to understand why he's bunting in the first place. Kozma goes to third base because Carpenter charges, but second base is unoccupied, and Molina catches the ball, and Kozma realizes somebody better be over there with the right side of the infield all covering first base. There's a big, wide open hole in the middle of that Cardinals defense on that bunt attempt. Again, very questionable decision to bunt in that situation. We'll have to see in the post-game sound what they were thinking.
Really couldn't see what Schaefer is doing, but why wasn't he on second base?
Well, Chris Duncan's going to break that down on the post-game show. He's going to explain to everybody just why they were bunting there.
Good luck.
Infield is drawn in. Pitch is taken up for ball one by Gene Segura.
Bottom line, you have the go-ahead run at third base. You got one of your best hitters, hottest hitters at the plate. All he's got to do is hit the ball somewhere, and you take the lead. Why not just do it? And I know Choate's tough on lefties.
And another reason why it's hard to bunt.
Exactly.
1 ball, 1 strike.
And he did it for 2 pitches, so it wasn't like the first one and say, wait a minute, that's not what we're trying to do. And the last time I looked, nobody offered us to manage.
No, they didn't. I do actually have a question, a serious question for you, Al. There's a new rule that the interpreter is allowed to go to the mound and speak with a pitcher. If the pitcher needs help, can accompany the manager. That's actually a rule in baseball. What about a hitter that maybe is confused about signs? Could the interpreter go out and speak for the manager to a player?
Gee, Dan, what's the weather like today?
2-1 pitch back to Mujica. Play at the plate. They got it. Mujica gets the ground ball. Makes that play. Spins and throws and keeps this 3-3. I don't know if somebody's hurt here, because here comes the medical staff, and Mujica walking around the mound. You just hope he's all right.
Did he spike himself, or
had to reach for that baseball, and you wonder if he did some in that regard.
He's smiling right now. He says he's okay, but certainly drawing a lot of attention there behind the Cardinals mound on the infield. They're going to let him throw a couple of pitches, but boy, the Brewers just kind of not taking advantage of an opportunity here in the 9th inning.
Something with his leg or foot.
Essentially, you handed the Cardinals an out and put yourself in a tougher hole to come through with just one out, and Mujica comes through for St. Louis. Take a look here. Going off the backside of the mound, and right away the Cardinals, I was watching, Matheny and the medical staff hopped right out of the dugout, so they saw something as well.
I think what he did when he delivered the pitch, it was an awkward landing. He kind of jumped off his feet and then forgot about whatever was hurting him and made the play. And
I had the picture of Mike Matheny and the Cardinals medical staff holding their breath too, as there was a play at the plate involving Yadier Molina, and I thought that would be a closer play at the plate than it was.
Sure seemed like it should have been as high as that ball bounced.
Right. Interesting here. You've got Weeks on deck. You do have third base open. Would you want to load him up and pitch around Braun, or do you trust Mujica?
I think you pitch very carefully to Braun. Try to get him, as other than the home run he hit last inning, they've had good success, man. That was the first hit he had in the series.
Two-run homer his last time up to make it a 3-2 Cardinals lead. They tied it up against Boggs, and this crowd comes alive.
You're going to trust any Cardinal pitcher out of the bullpen as far as throwing a pitch to a proper location. It's Mujica. Very good control.
3 for 8. Mujica, and I agree with what you just said.
2-1. Braun, by the way, 3 for 8 in his career against Mujica, staying with it and making the play. Adams. Cardinals a chance to win it as we head to the bottom of the 9th.
Stadium, but he's on a list he'd prefer not to be on since 2010. These are the pitchers who have had the most leads lost without getting the win, and Garcia on top of that list. Homer Bailey, Dan Herron, Vargas, and Wolf. And Garcia had another one here today. 7 solid innings, 7 hits, 2 walks, 5 strikeouts. But a run in the 9th after scoring 2 in the 8th by the Brewers has tied this one at 3.
Chevy called to the pen. It's Kinsler, the right-hander, that comes in.
Came out of independent baseball, was acquired from the St. Paul Saints, and very interesting. From 2004 to 2006, Kinsler served as a manager at a Cold Stone Creamery in Las Vegas, which was owned by his sister, and he credits scooping ice cream helped in his recovery from shoulder surgery.
Now that's a new one.
And he also worked for the Winnipeg Gold Eyes during the 2008 offseason, selling season tickets to a team that he used to play for. He also, in 2009 offseason, he worked as a limo driver for the Wynn Hotel in Las Vegas. Well-rounded.
Here's a 1-1 pitch to Adams. Again, that shift is on for Adams, and home run, 419 feet back in the 4th. A single in the 2nd as that beat the shift. I'm still trying to figure out what the Brewers were doing with Aoki with the bunt. Either way, Cardinals are saying thank you. I mean, you're talking about a guy that's got tremendous bat control too.
Right.
Just doesn't make a lot of sense.
It did to somebody at the time, but not to us.
Sometimes you overthink. You try to do more than what's the natural thing to do. Runners at first and third, nobody out. Tie score, 9th inning. Just put the ball in play. But Ron Renicky is very, very good manager. I have a lot of respect for him. He came in 2nd for the manager of the year his rookie season as a manager with the Brewers. That's the year Kirk Gibson won it. And he's in his 3rd season with Milwaukee, and he's trying to do something to manufacture runs with an offense that's struggling. But he's got to believe he overthought that.
And he's also trying to figure out who to use in his bullpen. He's used his closer, and they can't trust Axford in a tight game right now. Here's a 3-2 pitch. So 9th inning, Aoki trying to bunt and advance a runner to 2nd, if not to the plate. There's out number 2. And then Matt Adams on a hard hit ball, positioned perfectly, beats Ryan Braun to the bag. So good work by Edward Mujica. Lost in all this as Cosma hits it into right. Catch made by Weeks. Nice play. Scalzo 1 for 3. Cardinals have had a righty throwing in the pen. And there's strike 1.
Beltran on deck, and Salas will be warming up.
Descalso with a liner into right. Catch made by Aoki. Extra innings here at Busch. Salas coming on when we come back. Fernando Salas has joined High Sox Sunday in our Chevy call to the pen. As Al mentioned earlier, a lot of guys that have not had work, so you are dealing with a fresh bullpen out there as David Freese takes over at third.
And even as a byproduct of the great shutout pitching by the starters, you have some guys that hadn't gotten any work. Freese in this ball game as part of a double switch. Scalzo is out, right? Carpenter's moved to second.
Yep, Carpenter at second. Salas in the game. Freese at third. Ricky Weeks at the plate, and here we go. Extra innings, first pitch, a strike.
And more work for our Gold Glove, Platinum Glove catcher Yadier Molina, who has become quite the Iron Man here in the early going. Cardinals not getting any days off in the near future, and Yadi just keeps going out there day after day, inning after inning.
0-1 pitch. Robinson near the line makes the catch. Rick, we were talking the other night about how comfortable the Cardinals feel about Shane Robinson at any of these outfield spots. Very, very good defensive player.
Yeah, he's a smooth guy. He knows what he's doing. He's got good hands as well, and he's got plus speed. And Robinson, I think, is shown that he can hit at the big league level with what we saw, especially in spring training. He just seems to have a slightly different approach, and the ball jumping off his bat a bit more. He's hit every place he's been. It's not as if he's kind of come out of nowhere. He's been a guy that's put up good numbers in the minor leagues.
Lou Croy with a drive into left center field. John Jay on the move, looks up, and it's gone. The Brewers go on top here in the 10th, 4-3. Lou Croy, his first home run and his 4th RBI of the season.
First pitch, and he's jumping on that one and hit it out. Lucroy really was having an outstanding season last year before he broke his hand. Missed 50 games. Knocks this one out of the ballpark, and for the first time this whole series, the Cardinals are trailing in the game against the Brewers.
Salas has had some very good moments out of the Cardinals' pen. Was the closer for a while, but giving up the home run has been really his Achilles heel. He's around the plate a lot. And the Cardinals will have Freese, Jay, and Matt Carpenter in the bottom of the 10th.
So when Boggs was brought in, they did not put, and Robinson were brought in, they just put Robinson in
Alan Craig's
spot, and knew that Boggs probably was only going to pitch an inning, but you were figuring that was going to close out the victory. And now you had to burn Freese because he'll lead off next inning at the bottom of this inning.
Cardinals have Freese, Jay, Carpenter due up. That just missed. Martin Maldonado. What is going through his mind right now when you think about the back end of games, big road trip coming up, and still trying to find a way to win this one? A 3-2 pitch. Robinson picked it up late, and he makes the catch. A season in which the Cardinals have had a lot of positives going their way. The one that really sticks out right now is the fact that Jason Mott is hurt. We don't know about his availability until May 1st, and just listening to folks talk about it, not overly positive, but it brings up a big gap. Think about the back end of games and guys not in their familiar spots. I mean, Mitchell Boggs was making a case he was the best 8th inning or setup man in baseball a year ago.
I think that Joe Torre selecting him on the U.S. team for the World Baseball Classic, it verified what you just said. Nobody feels worse than Jason Mott right now, and Boggs. Cardinal fans going to have to get used to this, because best case scenario, Mott would start throwing May 1st.
And it just opens up all kinds of ideas and thoughts and options, and Mike Matheny will be asked about it after this game. We all know that, as sure as we're sitting here. What are you going to do tomorrow? Game on the line, 9th inning. Who's your choice?
Freeze, Jay Carpenter due up. Jonathan Lucroy. Jonathan Lucroy? He's giving Milwaukee the lead. The start for Jaime Garcia. 7 innings, 7 hits, 5 strikeouts. The key, though, no runs. Our Budweiser player of the game, Jaime Garcia.
Hero in the World Series, going to be a hero once again for his hometown, and tie this one up or get on and give you a bloop and a blast, whatever you need.
Little action in Milwaukee's bullpen. There's some milling about.
Mike Gonzalez. So you might see that Kinsler will pitch to David Freese, and then they'll bring in the veteran Gonzalez to try and get the lefties out. Just a side note, I noticed that in 2011, Kinsler was on the disabled list on middle of May with tricep tendonitis and did not come back that year. Johnny Cueto last night came out of the game for Cincinnati with a problem with his tricep.
You have to say that the Brewers' bullpen has done a pretty nice job here. They've been battered around a bit in the early going, looking for their right formula, but they've been good since the 6th. Cardinals have only had 2 hits since the 4th inning. John Jay base hit that came in the 5th inning, and Daniel Descalzo had a single in the 7th. And other than that, not much Cardinal offense after building that lead.
3-2 pitch to Freese. And the tying run is aboard. Leadoff walk. Ron Renicky is saying, you have got to be kidding me. I mean, nothing has gone his way. Injuries, his closer situation, starters for the most part have not been going deep into games, and now a bright spot. They get the home run to take the lead, and what happens next? They walk the leadoff man.
He does not appear to be going to the mound, even though the left-hander is ready. The lefty John Jay at the plate. And you wonder if they're just going to leave this pitcher in because they believe he's the superior defender against a possible bunt.
Kinsler had one independent league save and 35 saves in the minor leagues, but nothing at the major league level.
One-0 pitch to John Jay. Bunting up the first base line, and Weeks is covering. So David Freese in scoring position. The bunt perfect by Jay. The third baseman was playing in. Went to the other side.
I liked how he hustled down the line and forced them to make a throw.
You bet.
Make a throw, you never know. You could throw it away.
Now they want to go with a lefty. Carpenter due up, and then you have Holiday. Gonzalez, we've seen him pitch in this series. He'll come in and face Carpenter when we come back. The tying run in scoring position. Heavy called to the pen, and Gonzalez has been used 6 games this season, the high ERA. And what's interesting is that warming up, I believe, is Axford. So you could have a scenario where Gonzalez is here to face one hitter, and then Axford and Holiday, that showdown potentially. We'll see how they want to play it. One out runner at second, outfield straight away. Carpenter looks at strike one.
Many times we've seen Carpenter take a pitch away from him, drive it into left field. At the left center field gap.
Carpenter pops it up into shallow left, and the catch is made. Will they go back to the bullpen here? You would have to assume so, as Gonzalez gets the best of the lefty-lefty matchup.
Badenhop warming up there.
Maybe we assumed wrong, but what he'll do is intentional walk here to Holiday, so you'll put the potential winning run on and take your chances here with Shane Robinson. We'll see then if he goes to his bullpen for the righty-righty matchup.
I would think he would, and I can't really blame him for this move right here with Matt Holliday. He's certainly a potential to win it by himself, so you force Shane Robinson coming off the bench to be the guy that's the hero.
Game 2 right here at Busch Stadium in the National League Division Series. Beltran hit a home run off of Gonzalez, and Robinson has hit a home run off him also.
You also then could make the change and bring in Beltran in this spot too.
And I would think that is a strong possibility.
Badenhop coming in with 2 down. Little history, 1 for 2 with a single and a walk. Beltran comes off the bench, and this year as a pinch hitter he is 0 for 1. He'll hit from the left side of the plate. He's had 241 from that side. 6 of his 8 RBIs have come from the left side. Interesting that you do walk potential winning run on base.
How far has John Axford gone down that he's not being used in this situation? Badenhop gave up a couple of hits and a couple of runs yesterday, unearned. He's back out there again trying to nail this one down for Milwaukee. Cardinal fans hoping for something different.
2 outs, 2 on. Off-speed pitch, a slider in there for strike 1.
Badenhop, who was acquired in a trade with Tampa Bay, looked like he's the sinker slider type pitcher.
Works from the first base side of the rubber. Outfield plenty deep. A single would score him. 1 ball, 1 strike, you would think. Making sure that nothing gets over their head. sharply hit to short. Across the diamond they'll go. They had him played perfectly. What a disappointing way to end the homestand and this series. The Cardinals, though, do win 2 of 3. Badenhop gets the final out, and Milwaukee salvages a game. 4-3 our final.
Cardinals had their chance in the 9th inning. They were not able to get any offense after the 4th, and a shame to waste an outstanding outing for Jaime Garcia, who should be 3-0 this year.
Yeah, he should be 3-0. And Dan, you mentioned it. The Cardinals have won this series. They've won 3 in a row. But when you win the first 2 and you have a lead going in the 9th, it's tough when you can't close it out.
So we jump ahead to the post-game show. Pat and Chris Duncan standing by. 4-3 our final.